Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm glad to see so many people here. We have felt lonely this last year or so. Only people coming when we invited them to, and really we were hoping for more input all along. So thank you so much for coming. I'm going to go ahead and pop up our agenda. There are printed copies floating around, but in the event you don't have one in front of you. I know that this is what we've got for tonight because we all got kicked out of the top floor. So our first agenda item is welcome and public comment. So this is the welcome. If anyone has any public comment on anything that's not directly on the agenda or just in general, we can tell you if it's going to come up later. But who would like to make a so could you identify yourself for the minute?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jessie Heiser. I live here in the village. And I'm going to read comments. It'll just take a couple of minutes. Just want to make sure that I cover the things I'd like to say to you, and sometimes it's easier for me to just read what I have. I know that serving on committees takes time and commitment, and I appreciate the efforts and the service of people who are here and serve on other ones throughout our town. And in the spirit of the value of community discourse, I sent a letter to this committee a week ago, outlining my deep concerns about the proposal for the redesign of Volunteers Green that has new infrastructure and hard surfaces. And for the benefit of others here or those watching or listening, I'll summarize quickly that I have clearly very deep concerns about the proposed components, both collectively and individually. The paved path, the paved basketball court, a gaga pit, a pavilion, and an expanded section of mats at the playground instead of grass and wood chip. All of these, whether taken all together collectively or individually, lead me to ask that you please not recommend changes to Volunteers Green and surfacing or infrastructure to the select board for ARPA funding before getting extensive community input on what the whole community wants to see or not see in Volunteers Green specifically. The environmental impacts of a total of an acre of paving in the floodway, not just the floodplain, comprised of a paved path around the perimeter of the green, basketball court, along with the already approved paving of the Volunteers Green parking lot, are ones to take seriously. We need to consider what it means to be in the floodway, the pollutants from runoff, because hard surfaces, unlike vegetation, can't absorb runoff, snow melt, or pollutants. And it can constitute degradation of the surfacing and of the vegetation around it. And it also requires future upkeep. And if there are ways to navigate around floodway or floodplain regulations, it doesn't mean that we should. Reliance upon surveys, there were two, one in ARPA and a rec committee one, for spaces and places throughout the town. Not the location, they're not location based. These two certainly weren't specific to Volunteers Green. And for a small group of individuals to make assumptions about what the community wants and to recommend and decide something that will change the face of Volunteers Green for decades would not be responsible without broad and substantial community input at the visioning stage. This is a beloved space for the whole Richmond community and to people beyond this town too. It's not a derelict or insufficiently used green space. It's populated and enjoyed for its unique, current, open, and largely uninterrupted configuration. There's a qualitative difference between having committees hear from all in this community at the earliest and visioning stage of proposals versus being asked for reactions to something already proposed, priced out, researched, greenlighted, or moving through the channels of approval. It puts the community members in a position where they would need to object, if they wish to a project that's far along in its development, which is not fair to the many people who care so much about this place. I know there have been discussions over time about repairs to the existing band shell and to address some unsafe existing components of the playground. But for any new structures, mats or surfaces, I ask that you not recommend this proposal or further it along of any of its individual component parts for ARPA funding or to send to the select board for approval without significant input and involvement of the community at this stage before it goes any further. Thank you.
And just a bit of, you have significant professional experience in this area, right? Josh Ernest mentioned you to me and said this woman has a lot of experience in this area. So
In which area?
planning, zoning, building public spaces. Or you're just, okay.
Or not.
Or not. Then maybe I'm confused with something else, but regardless, I think your points are well taken. I'm glad you came to offer them.
Thank you.
Okay, I see several other people here with notes in front of them. Would anybody else like to make a public statement?
We're here to support, really. We all live in the village as well, and you know, the concerns that Jess had, we all share them. So we just are basically here for the support and just to make sure things are heard. And so really, she said it all. Yeah, I'd like to. There's one more chair.
Yeah, I apologize for the one time we have a lot of people here is the time we're in this, but the DRP is very popular tonight in here. Okay,
So I would like to know how many people are there in support of Jess's comment.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay,
We have more.
and
that couldn't come
and we
to-
we have a sign-in sheet too, so we'll know who they
Yeah.
are.
And so
Okay,
you
great.
said you wanted to add something to this?
It's just another concern too is we all live along the park. And we don't have any problem with coming and using it. It's great. It's great, but when you add more structures, you add more things that will call more people, not just from our village, but from other towns. I think we have issues that we have to think about. And at night, we see cars driving down at night. And when I had my dog, I would see little exchanges through car windows,
Oh,
little packets and things, and I would call the police and they didn't come.
mhm.
And,
Yeah,
or they would come an hour later or something. I understand. I don't know what they're doing or anything, but it's also a concern for having a park that stays healthy.
Right.
right. The safety of our neighborhood is pretty up there. Like, you know, every spring and summer. We call the cops often because, you know, yeah, our backyard is the park and there's no reason for cars to be down there at 10 o'clock at night, blasting music. So it's like, yeah, calling, and then we'd report it to the police. Often they wouldn't come. And like Lisa said, you know, I get things are busy. This isn't super important, but we've seen cars driving around.
Oh, no, I'm-
fields.
I thought those
Yeah.
gates were locked at night.
There are no gates.
Didn't,
Yeah.
Okay, Mary, here's what I need you to do. I need you to build a 6-foot deep trench there tomorrow. Okay.
On it.
will do.
So,
On that subject, I agree with you. This, you know, it's,
That's my.
this is just a public comment period, but I do actually have a lot of sympathy for both your points of view. I don't disagree with anything you said. But any other public comment? Anything additions? Sorry.
Jay, can I ask, when you call the police, what kind of response do you get?
they often just say, okay, we'll send someone over, and my husband and I will sit out on the porch waiting and no one comes. There was one time it took 2 hours and we called 3 times. And it was just last year, and it's every year, like at least a dozen times we call the police because we've heard people screaming. You know, like they go way deep in the woods down like the farmers, that dirt path or road down by the farmer, and they stay down there. So it's alarming to us, like what's going on. There's never anything good going on at that hour, going way back in the woods. So, yes.
It's still part of the problem.
Okay, so we need to move on because we do have a limited time. We usually try to keep this to about an
Excuse
hour.
me, I'm sorry, but could Harlan just say a couple
Oh,
of things?
please do.
The person that put in most of that park, I do not feel that it needs to have paid pass. At one point, we were gonna put in a basketball court / tennis court. And a lot of work and you gotta pass a lot of regulations. And it got so expensive, it wasn't even worth it.
Okay, well, I validate everything you've said. You've got good points of view. I don't disagree with anything you've said. Just need to move on, but we will get back to your topic.
Could I just ask one question? And I'll shut
Could,
up.
could you tell me who that was who was speaking?
Jeff, the public, we still got it. We still have some people from the public asking questions.
Okay,
Just
thank
one
you.
quick question, yes or no, would be fine. Sorry,
They usually need your name.
oh, Lisa Litwin, I'm from Esplanade
Mhm.
Street. We were all flooded
Mhm.
by Irene. And we have been told by FEMA that we can't build on our
Correct.
properties or something. So why is it that we keep hearing that it's been okayed?
It has not been okay.
Okay, so that.
In fact, we can't build anything there either without the select board explicitly waiving our zoning ordinances to allow building there. And before we would do that, we would have to have extensive research and public comment. So nothing has been okayed whatsoever there
And a lot of it, you have to get permission from
from FEMA
FEMA.
or
because
from the
it's
state.
floodplain.
Right, we have, there's so many, there's.
Yeah. I
The
know,
list
I've
is
been
linked.
through it.
Yeah, yeah.
And since Irene, the floodplain is raised because my house was out of the floodplain and now it's dead nuts in it.
Okay, so we will be coming to these topics a little bit later, but I'm not trying to dismiss what you're saying. We usually try to keep our meetings to about an hour, and we are a minute and a quarter into that, but if we have to move some things to next meeting in order to hear adequately, then we'll do that. Okay,
Thank you.
any additions or deletions to the agenda other than what you see here on the board?
I'm sorry, there was a gentleman, did you get to sign in? I didn't.
Yes,
see it.
yes, I
But
got the sign in. I
you
would've-
want to speak
I would've-
during the public, because you announced that it was public open.
Right, if you have a comment you'd like to make, sure.
Okay, I would. I didn't want to interrupt with the agenda either. I can keep it brief. Hi, my name is Trevian Stanger. Some folks may have noticed, I just wrote a front porch forum post 2 days ago, where I was just expressing a desire to not have the overall North Star of this thing to only be about recreation.
Mhm.
I think recreation, while wonderful, is but one way to enjoy public lands and enjoy nature.
Mhm.
I've been with my kids in various parks in the county and throughout New England that include things like community orchards, nature-based playgrounds, pollinator gardens. There's just a really wonderful amount of things that are possible at this space once we open up that kind of discussion.
Mhm.
So as that goes forward and little groups branch off and want to talk about some of these ideas, that's something I would look forward to being involved in.
Mhm.
And I'm just supportive of this process entirely. I'm glad that we've got these opportunities. So thanks to you all too for helping catch this federal money and put it to good use.
Yeah, and on that subject of like recreation-based gardens, there's a lot of interesting ideas floating around out there. The Verberg property, for example, was just sold, and I believe the lady who bought it does not want to develop it. In fact, she wants to use it for community garden space.
Sweet.
Wow. Yay.
We've also created a gardening committee with the goal of increasing these opportunities in town. I'm a big fan of gardening,
Great.
Well.
as is Mary, and all right thinking people, right?
That's right.
Okay. Absent any further public comment, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Have you, the first item on the agenda is minutes of the March 22nd meeting.
Can we get back to the next meeting so that we could, since we took. public
Just wondering,
comment?
well, since Duncan's right here, does anybody have any additions, corrections that you know for this time? We can hold off on voting for it, but if you
I do have, so that's why I thought.
Okay.
I can.
don't, you're always welcome to email corrections to Duncan. He's very good about that, and it does save time.
Okay.
So I'm perfectly happy with moving that along to next meeting. But we do have a major item, which I'm very pleased to see Linda Parent here to speak to tonight, and Heidi here also, yeah. So Linda and Heidi, I would offer you the lectern, but we haven't gotten one. So
Right here, thank you.
go right ahead. This is the Richmond Cemetery Commission.
Yes,
Mhm.
and I gave all the members a copy of this little presentation. The Richmond Cemetery Commissioners are presenting the following proposal to the ARPA committee. That a 4-foot high fence with gate be installed on 4 sides around the village cemetery located between Jelena Court and the Richmond Free Library. We feel this is important to provide a respectful and protected final resting place for many of our Richmond citizens. When the Jelena Court property was being developed, a fence was asked for between the Jelena Court property and the cemetery but the DRB decided against requiring the builder to erect it. We have had problems in the past with the residents of the Creamery Apartments recreating in the cemetery. We have had to have them move their lawn furniture and their picnic tables out of there. A properly installed fence would deter other vandalism to the cemetery. And as people going by can see, there's a lot more stones being tipped over. And I have noticed a lot of dogs in there. And in the future, if a sidewalk is put there, is installed in front of the cemetery property, a fence would deter people cutting through the cemetery. Enclosed in your packet, we have a proposal for a fence from F.E. Hart Fence of Williston for $27,829. We've consulted with Middlebury Fence and Fair Fences of Fairfax, but have not received any estimates. We have a proposal for installing that fence and the cement work from White's Fencing in Heinsberg of $10,177.50. The stones in the village cemetery are in dire need of restoration and repair. We have an estimate of $6,700 from James Woodman. We have been extremely happy with Mr. Woodman's work in the past. This is a very precise and detailed work. There are a very limited number of people who do this. So we did try to get estimates from another vendor. They came and looked and never gave us an estimate. We're proposing that the Cemetery Association cover 50% of the cost of this project and the ARPA funds be used for a match of 50% of the project, which would calculate to $22,353.25 of ARPA funds. In the past, the Cemetery Association has paid for the removal of 3 quite large trees in front of the village cemetery that were really on town property, but we paid for the removal. And we hope that ARPA will consider our request for funds. And enclosed, you have, if you guys want to see them, we have plenty.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have enclosed.
You're all right, George.
You have the F.E. Hart Fence Company estimate. You have the estimate from the company to install it. You have the estimate from Mr. Woodman for repairing stones. And then I've included the overview of responsibilities of the cemetery, which includes fence repair. And the next page, which says you were supposed to have a fence around a cemetery. And that goes on for 2 pages. These are from the state statute. And once land has been dedicated as a cemetery, it pretty much has to be a cemetery forever unless there is like a Supreme Court order to move bodies or close it down. And we are working on the last page about repairing stones. We have had people do it in the past. And I know there was one right towards the front and the man repaired it. And actually, he agreed there's no way that just fell over in the snow.
That one at the far right hand end.
Yes, he said that it had to have been vandalism. And we've had vandalism up in there. Why they think they need to break the flags. You know, we have veteran flags. There's a lot of veterans in there. And I was just told by a lady from the Daughters of the American Revolution that we have some specific veterans there. Offhand, I don't remember what she called them. But she says, you are so lucky that you have them buried in your town. And it's like, okay. And she's going to be visiting with the Historical Society to notify people of that. But we really don't want the dogs running in there and the people that live next door that tell us didn't know it was a cemetery. And we did have pictures and I sent them the pictures and I said, you could put that coffee cup on the man's tombstone right there. We do have an Indian princess buried in there. And we do have That's the place they put the paupers and the transients when they died in Richmond many years ago. And there are some bodies that are in there. For whatever reason, they moved their tombstones to Riverview,
But didn't
but
move the body.
they did not move the bodies, so we don't really know where those are even.
Right. Okay,
And I must say that when they were building Jolena Court, they did unearth a casket. And a gentleman that was watching saw them and told them to stop, and they wouldn't stop. And then they just wouldn't admit they had done it. He said it broke the end of the casket open.
yeah. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm stunned that the price that's Effie Hart is quoting for the fence doesn't include installation. They just bring it and drop it off.
Yep.
Oh, I want that job.
They no longer install. It's not the same Effie Hart it used to be.
All right.
Okay,
Any
Jeff,
other questions?
Jeff,
A couple of things. Duncan, I wonder if you could look into whether or not, our insurance covers any vandalism at our cemeteries. That would be worth looking into. Have you designed what kind of fence, Linda, or
Yeah.
Heidi? What kind of fence are you talking?
It's commercial grade.
It's like a black wrought iron.
Yeah,
With it, it looks like historically within the other characteristics of other towns or other cemeteries that we have now, Joe. So it fits in with the characteristic of the community.
right, and it's
Good.
made out of aluminum, so
Yes.
it's not supposed to rust.
Well, good, because, I wouldn't want a chain link fence necessarily just, for the purpose of a fence, but
Correct.
I'd want it to be aesthetically
Aesthetically.
pleasing.
Yeah,
So would I.
we thought of that, and we were
I'm
thinking of
hoping-
putting the gate on the corner near the library.
Great.
So
And
that
I'm
they could
hoping
get
that,
a lawnmower in there.
I'm hoping if we move forward with the sidewalk project that, it could be incorporated into that, that the fence could go all the way around. Is that what you're envisioning?
Yes,
And
Great.
and Jeff, we are
Mhm.
trying to be pre-planning and looking forward in case, if that project does go forward. We're not backtracking something, it's already protected. These are citizens that basically created the community that we live in now. And I
Yeah.
think it's very important to protect them and keep that history. And it's something that we'll all see here in the community.
I like having the gate to the front by the library so that it's visible. You know who's going in and you know the access point. Thank you.
Molly had a question, and then we'll go to Martha.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. So Linda. I just am looking at this now,
Yeah.
but you mentioned that the town is supposed to have a fence, but I don't
Yes.
read it that way. So I see where it says the select board, when the select board neglects to keep and repair the fence, there's a fine, but
Yeah.
the thing about fencing in B here says the cemetery commission has the authority. Is the cemetery commission and the select board the same thing?
no,
Okay, so I just want to clarify that.
right,
Okay, so it's not that the town is derelict in not having a fence. It sounds like it's kind of a choice.
it's just, that
Okay.
there never has been.
Okay, and then the other question I have is the fence gonna preclude people from walking in the cemetery?
No, they can walk it through the.
Okay.
You can walk to the gate.
There'll be,
Okay.
we're looking at a gate close to the library because
Okay.
your folks are working on the library.
Okay.
So that's being fixed. This is gonna be next to it,
Okay,
where people normally would park here if they're
Mhm.
going to visit the cemetery.
okay,
It's an easy access, but
Okay.
we've also spoken to the highway department
Yeah.
to make sure the lawn care can be accessed with their lawn tractors
Okay.
for the gate. I
That's
mean, it's been thought out.
okay.
Okay.
The way I
Yeah.
was hearing the presentation, it sounded like you guys, like, you were concerned about there being any human activity at
No.
the cemetery, and that
No.
seems weird to me, because
Right.
personally, I
We-
think it's
we-
good to have people visiting the
Inappropriate.
cemetery.
Inappropriate.
So I got
Recreation.
Well, I'm not
So I
sure
have
the
to-
police is gonna totally
Right.
stop
Yeah.
inappropriate use, because people can still get in there and
Right.
do stupid
You're
things.
saying I've got to stop playing volleyball. Got it.
There you go.
Or have a hammock.
Hey, Jeff, go
I
ahead.
don't see a
Seriously.
problem with that, actually. Like, I don't, personally, but that's okay. People wanna
So
be
I would
there.
suggest, actually that, you come up with a design and some visuals and have a public hearing about it. Before you just, say yes and buy it. And I think probably the cemetery commission is the right one to be doing it, rather than the select board. I'm in favor of this proposal. I'm not trying to slow it down. It's just that I think that people are gonna have opinions about it. And I think it would be important to have, some public input. Something else that you might want to take into consideration, is we're making some progress on the town center. When the town, if and when the town center, is renovated, it's also going to be the landscaping, the whole layout is going to be changed, including the parking lot. And so you might want to have some access from the back of the parking lot too, or think about how that might interact with your proposal. Nothing immediate, but just something to keep in mind.
Okay,
Excuse me, Jay.
go ahead, Karen.
I'd like to make a motion that the ARPA committee recommend to the select board to use $22,353.25 toward the fencing and the improvements to the stone and to be utilized, I don't know, spent by the cemetery committee. I don't know exactly how you want that worded, Jay, but
Pursuant to a public, review and hearing.
well, the select board has to do that.
Right, yeah.
So I'm just,
I have no problem with the way the motion's been written for recommending to the select board.
okay, just recommending to the select board is use these funds for the purpose that the committee has presented to us. And the select board has their own public hearing, but
Second,
Okay, we have a motion second to go ahead and recommend $22,353.25. And you better not make it go up to 26.
we promise, we won't.
All right, is there any other comment? Rachel, Tom, any?
Can we discuss?
Yes, we
this?
can discuss the motion.
Okay, so I would want to compare this proposal to the criteria that we have decided upon as a committee, because
sure, we can go through that process. We did that last time.
Yep, let me just,
Where would you want this public hearing at a select board meeting?
I think having a select board meeting would be good.
How long is the proposal good for? Before they'll change their price? Okay.
We'll move it. If we move this tonight, it can be on the next select board. Johnny has to look up when they do a public hearing. Actually, down to the side.
I'm bringing the criteria up. Just.
Is there anybody else that's
Jay, I'm
on?
wondering if we can publish this criteria in some fashion. It's right now. It's, I
It's been
think,
shared out a couple of times, but we can always share it again. There's front porch forum doesn't cost anything.
well, I don't know if the criteria has it. So I tried to access it tonight and it's in a Google Doc and you need access to the Google Doc.
Okay,
So
I will reshare it again. Mhm.
So I think it'd be good to do it as a PDF and share it with the committee and share it with the select board, because it does keep coming up about what criteria we're using.
I think that's a fine idea.
I would suggest that we kind of put the brakes on this for a bit. I mean, like the last time, we are. It just has the feel that we're looking at these projects in a piecemeal fashion. I'm not opposed to it. It sounds like a great idea to put this fence up and potentially earmark some funds for this project. But again, it seems like we're like dealing with these projects as they come up, as opposed to running all of the projects or all the proposals of the projects at one meeting and weight them and prioritize them. It just seems like we're going through these piecemeal. And I believe I said this last time, although the minutes don't reflect it, that we put a deadline. All projects have to be, submitted by X date, and a week after that, we go through each one by one, and rank them.
Okay,
There you go.
come on, it's not that.
And I
I
have
don't want this
sent,
menu bar at the bottom, but it's being a jerk.
I have sent Jeff this presentation,
Jeff or
to
Josh?
Jeff.
Excuse me.
And if anybody else wants it sent email, let me know. Any of the other members that are on there.
Okay, I apologize. Excel, or rather Google Doc Sheets, is being difficult. But I will read the criteria since I can't seem to show them all at the same time. The money needs to be able to be allocated by the end of the fiscal year 2020, by the end of 2024 calendar year. Has to be able to be spent by 2026. We want to be able to leverage other grants. So if we have two possible competitive expenses, one of them allows us to match grant money and one does not, we wouldn't be inclined toward the one that does match. We want things to be long-lived. We don't want to, spend the money on a big party and then say, whoops, there's the money gone. If we can generate future cost savings for the town, if this is something that generates future revenue, i.e. expands the tax base, or actually is a revenue producing thing, like if we put solar on the roof and we're able to, I don't know, sell that solar. It should be something that can be widely shared and accessible to all residents in an equitable manner. So it shouldn't be something that benefits primarily a small group. And we wanted to improve the aesthetics, use and enjoyment of publicly held commons such as beautification, parks, buildings, town entry corridors. If it can increase public safety and if it can increase public wellness. So from a standpoint of the criteria, this would certainly score high on the beautification. It would score high on the long lived. I mean, a wrought iron fence is not going to fall apart anytime soon. We're being asked to only contribute half of it. The other half would be matched by the cemetery committee. We can certainly allocate it by 2024. We can very likely get it completely spent by 2026. Future cost savings, that's a little more nebulous. You'd be able to say, well, it reduced vandalism. It's not going to create more revenue that I would think of. It would be widely shared. It's everybody's cemetery. So long story short, I don't think it doesn't hit on all 10 criteria, but I don't think it's a bad use. Molly, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, this process of reviewing the criteria, I'm agreeing with what Tom just said, and I'm concerned about the process because I feel like, Jay, what you just went through, when you read the criteria, but then you also gave your opinion about whether it met it. All of us on the committee will have maybe it's the same opinion, maybe different opinion. And I think that is screaming out for a more measured approach by the committee to get the projects that are recommended into us and having a process where we talk as a committee and use the criteria and weigh things. So I also I'm not against this cemetery proposal, but I'm not at this point feeling like I'm ready to recommend it to the select board because of the process.
Rachel, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the time frame the cemetery committee was envisioning. Is there any urgency, or is it like you would just like to see a fence eventually? Obviously, it should be put there some day and time, but is there any sense of urgency or what you were thinking in terms of time?
Our thought, Rachel, is doing it sooner rather than later. Actually, if we could do it this summer, would be ideal because we are trying to think forward of if the potential sidewalk goes in, this is then already protected, the vandalism, the crossing over, and it protects this area, but it's also thinking ahead instead of backpedaling and going, okay, now we've got a project that's happening and now, oh, now we have to, catch up and fix that problem. We're trying to think forward instead of, and being proactive instead of reactive is my firm belief.
Okay. I'd like to comment on what Tom said. I strongly disagree with what Tom says, and I'd like to explain why. I've kept my mouth shut mostly about this, but I really feel like I come to these meetings, and every meeting we take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. I think we're getting nowhere. I have a list of projects that we've discussed so many times, and yet every single time they come up, we're like, why are we trying to move so fast? I'm not talking about building the playground. Not a chance in hell we're gonna move fast on that for the reasons that I think are obvious to pretty much everybody. But spending on the sidewalks, that's something that meets the criteria, in my opinion, very, very well, especially considering how many people asked for the sidewalks in the survey. And every time we say, are we prepared to go ahead and vote that out? Oh, we shouldn't move so fast. I'm getting tired of that. Now, I'm just one person, but if that's going to be what the committee consists of, oh, we're not ready yet, or we're not ready yet, I think we may have to find another chair. Because I only have so many hours in the day.
I have to agree with you. 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards, that's no way to run anything.
Right.
And this area deserves protection. When Jelena Court was proposed, there was a big controversy. They wanted to have balconies over the cemetery, cantilevered in, and that was a big harumph over the select board, and it was disallowed. And it was expressly pointed out that Jelena Court, oh, we would be very respectful of the cemetery, and I have no reason not to believe that somebody did uncover a portion of a casket, and that it's very easy to cast it. Well, you know, we meant no disrespect. No, it is disrespectful. If you didn't stop then and continued, I think we need to protect, you know, the cemetery. I can't really call an asset, but it is a benefit to the town and the history of the town, and it deserves protection. George's father said if he ever found a dog running through the cemetery, because his mother was buried there, they would be held to pay. Thank you.
Sure.
I do agree with Molly with reading the 10 criteria every time we make a decision. I do like that process, but I don't need to feel the need to debate with you if I feel it meets the 10 criteria or not. I can make that decision for myself by my vote. And so that's why I made the motion for us to move forward with some of these projects, because I do feel like, Jay, that the longer we wait, the less likely we're going to have the time or the materials or the ability to spend any of the money, because we've waited and waited and waited. The 2 projects so far that we're voting on, the library, which we've already recommended the repairs to, and now the cemetery, which is adjacent to the library, I think is a project that goes together before the sidewalks are put in. So for me, that's the reason behind me making the motion, and we can either vote and it can pass, or we can vote and it gets, and we stop talking about it. But I feel like we need to start making a level of decisions and not wait for the miracle of the total of the 1.2 decision making, because we're not all going to agree which ones should go and which ones shouldn't. So this is an attempt at just seeing, can we just move forward on something or not? And that's what I feel.
Hey, Jeff, go ahead.
I'd actually like to hear from Rachel first.
Rachel, go ahead.
Well, there's a question in the chat that says, is there a place where proposals are so that I can look at them? That was from Lisa Lavoie. And I think the answer is no.
Well, anybody who has asked, I've shared the link too, but it's never, I don't know that it's on the town website, but I've got Duncan sitting right here, and Duncan and I will take an action first thing tomorrow morning to link to the original survey document with all the 318 suggestions, the collated surveys, and also our tentative, but very tentative list of what we currently are thinking about. We'll make sure we get all those up on the ARPA site tomorrow morning.
And the second thing I wanted to suggest was, it seems like the last 2 meetings, I wasn't at the last one, but I watched it. And then this one, all of a sudden, someone came out of nowhere asking for money. Whereas the other 5 or 6 things that you've been debating since last year have been kind of, you know, researched and then brought before the committee and then thought about and brought. So I understand both sides. I think I agree with Tom in that, can we set a date, no more proposals after our next meeting, and then at our next meeting, we'll say, here are the 10, or here are the 27. And like you had said before, here are the categories. And then we say, yes, no, I like this, I don't like that. These are the ones that we are in favor of. These are the ones we are opposed to. Otherwise, every single meeting, there's going to be somebody who brings a new proposal, and it will be, oh, we have to vote on it tonight. So that was kind of my, yes, let's move forward, but let's do it all at once and set a hard, fast end date.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Well put.
Totally echo that. And I think I suggested it last time. And Jay, I understand what you're saying. I know that you disagree strongly, but we could have set a date 2 months ago to say all projects get submitted by May 30th. And we decide 2 weeks later, and all of them, all at once. This is the first time, and I think the cemetery project is great for all the reasons that have been discussed. But this is the first time I've heard it today.
It would have been nice if we'd had it earlier, but it happens, it came up tonight, but I agree. I think we do need to draw a bright line, because until we know that that's all, folks, we will have a hard time feeling comfortable. There will be some aspects, just to kind of continue on this topic before we take a vote on the cemetery thing, just to finish this up. If we want to use money for the recreation, there are so many balls in the air on recreation. We got 1,000,001 requests for recreation. I think somebody said earlier tonight, it doesn't all have to go on Volunteers Free. There are other places as well. So recreation, can we actually say we have to have exact specifics by May 30th? I don't think so, but we can say we designate this percentage of the money, and then that could be something we continue working on. That's just my 2 cents. But I do think there's got to come a point where we are able to say nothing else is coming in. We feel comfortable moving this.
Sounds reasonable.
Hey, Jeff.
So, I'm quite proud of this committee. I think this committee has done excellent work. We've been meeting now for about 1.5 years. We had an excellent public engagement process. Shoot, included ice cream. How many public engagement processes do we have in town that includes ice cream? And we got lots of ideas.
Next time.
Over 500 ideas.
Yeah, but we're getting away from the motion, and we have to really watch that.
Yeah, fine.
I would like to finish my comment if I might, because I'm sorry if I'm long-winded, Kara, but I think what I'm having to say is relevant. I think that and by the same token, I don't feel like there's a tremendous urgency to any of our decisions immediately. The ARPA requirements are that we obligate the money by the end of 2024, by the end of next year, and spend it by the end of 2026. We've had many proposals now. All of them could fit within that criteria, both of those criteria. And I, for one, don't feel a particular urgency to make decisions on any one of these until they may be more fleshed out. There are a couple that are more urgent.
This is getting into actually, Jeff, our next agenda item. Can we table this until we've had a vote? Because I think we are getting way off from the cemetery stuff and into really the next agenda item. But I will call on you at that point.
So I made the motion, and my question is, I know you all want to talk about processes and stuff like that. This is less than $23,000. If you really want to come, if we really think it's not been thought out enough, that they don't have enough facts, that they don't have enough estimates, you can vote the way you want to vote, but I feel my decision isn't going to change if they come up with 3 more estimates or a drawn up design or a visual with landscape. I don't know what they're going to do different than what they've done right now. So that's my opinion, and I'd like to call the motion.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and state your name and your vote.
Kara, aye.
Kara, aye.
Molly, no.
Okay.
Rachel, no.
Jeff, Tom.
No, process.
Jeff, no, process. And
Okay.
I do support this idea and I would support the idea of earmarking some money for it. But I don't, right
Your
now,
vote is
it's,
no. Okay, I'm gonna vote no at this time because I do think it would be better to draw that line in the sand and then tick off as many as we can, but I'm completely sympathetic to it and I expect we will ultimately.
Okay.
Okay, and I want to thank you guys for coming and for all your work on the cemetery commission, because. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the question of finalizing recommendations to the select board, and we've kind of already touched on that a good bit by some of the comments that have been made tonight. And I did want to add a little bit more structure to our discussions. Essentially, Tom and I are thinking along the same lines, only he put it much better than I did. I think we do need to review the criteria, each on our own, and have a list of projects that we can all look at and apply the criteria. And as I've said, we really are working off 3 documents. We are working off the original list of suggestions, the 318 items. We have the collated list of suggestions where I kind of rolled things up. And we have a list of things we've gotten actual dollar amounts for, most of whom we have not authorized. In addition to those 3 lists, we do also have the criteria. And the criteria right now are simply a tab in a Google Docs sheet. And I think it should be put online as its own separate document because people won't have to hunt for it.
I think that would be good.
So I would like to entertain Duncan and I will do this tomorrow regardless of what else we discuss. But I'd like to have a motion made to do exactly what Tom suggested, to pick a date and say nothing else can come in after that date, no matter how awesome an idea it is. I do know that we will be having a delegation from the elementary school at one of the 2 meetings in May, because they have a request. I don't have the
The
specific.
elementary school,
Hamilton. I mean, yeah, the elementary school. They want to.
which is district wide.
It's a teaching the kids about the governmental process. Their request might be for something entirely Richmond. I don't know, but it's Richmond Elementary. So that we can always look at that and go, thanks kids so much for coming. Here's your American flag pin, and we'll consider this. But I do know that they've asked if they can come in May. And
When they come, can you make sure that you understand how much funding they received from the ARPA funds as well, please?
Sure, because you're right. The schools do government money too.
Thank you. And how
But-
they spent it.
Ice cream sandwiches. I know that's how I would have spent it when I was a kid. Those things were like gold. Anyway, would somebody like to propose a motion for us to discuss on the cutoff date?
So move.
Well, I don't have a date.
He's gonna be big, so let them do it.
Oh, excuse me. All right.
Tom, do you want to pick a date?
Sorry, May 31st.
Okay, I have a motion from Tom Lyle for May 31st. Do I have a second?
I mean, I'll second because I want to discuss.
Okay, Molly
Second.
seconded it. Okay, so we have a proposal to help add some structure to the coming up discussion by saying nothing after this date. The proposed date in the motion was May 31st. Comments, thoughts? Jeff?
well, some of these shoes are going to take a while to drop. So we've received a notification of a grant for phase 1 of the Bridge Street sidewalk. So that there was some urgency on that one because of the grant proposal. The town center committee is meeting tomorrow night, and we're finalizing our proposal for the ARPA committee. But we won't have a specific number. It will likely be along the lines of what would be the cost difference and cost savings from going from a code level renovation project to a high efficiency level.
Okay, but Jeff,
okay, so-
the question is, it's not about the value of the existing recommendations, the ones that may be coming tomorrow night. It's, do we want to have a cutoff of May 31st?
I think what I'm saying is relevant, Jay. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is that we will not have those numbers of what the difference in cost will be for a few months. Okay, and I think that some of this is not terrifically urgent. because again, we do not have to commit this money until the end of 2024 and spend it till the end of 2026. So that I'm using the town center committee as an example of, we hope to go to bond in November. We might not have final numbers on the difference between those two cost proposals for a couple, 3 months. We haven't finished the design process yet. Until we do the design, we won't have what that cost will be. So if you want a proposal by the end of May on the town center of what that cost might be and what that proposal might be, we might not have it.
Well, Jeff, to your point, as I mentioned already about the proposed recreation uses, we know we won't have a hard number on those either. My point was that we shouldn't have net new, brand new, out of a clear blue sky proposals coming in. All proposals, regardless of their dollar amount, need to be on the table by X date. That was essentially the proposal. We know you want to spend money in the town center, and we know you don't have specific dollar amounts yet, but the suggestion of spending money in the town center and a general outline of what you'd like to do, we have that.
Well, I would suggest that we do not have that on Volunteers Green, and that's going to require quite a bit more time in order to figure that out.
I would agree.
Are we
However,
talking individual projects here, or are we just talking a date? Because we've been talking about the town center since I started in November.
Mhm.
So for me, if I thought we were talking about a date, a drop dead date, and if we don't want a drop dead date, and then we don't want to make decisions, we are putting ourselves in a catch-22. So either we want a date to say all projects in with dollar amounts of estimates, at least, because we're not taking bids, we're not doing RFPs, we're not doing public hearings on this in the sense of making a decision. We're strictly making a recommendation of, say, set aside $200,000 for the purpose of this. The select board holds the public hearings, they gather the environmental information, they gather the community input, they gather those kinds of pieces that we're not the experts on. But it's just a process of, we listen to the community and the community asked us to move forward with certain things to go to that next level. And I agree with the visioning, but that wasn't what we were supposed to do. Our mission wasn't to vet all of the visionary pieces and do the micro planning. It was to send it to the next level. Now that we have a new town planner that could get involved and manage and oversee things. So I'm at the point where if we've got to wait for a specific project to come up with its numbers, then we might as well stop meeting, never meet again until that date that all of the numbers are on the table and the details are there, that you all want to make a group decision based on. I'm not opposed to this. I just don't want to keep meeting to talk about what we're going to meet about.
Can I retract my motion and propose another?
I'm not done yet, Tom. Thank you. And I really want to feel like we're moving something to the level that the select board can hold public hearings on, can collect the information, can have the town planner start the process and do the work to see if that's what the community really wants. Because if the community doesn't want it, the select board doesn't want it, they then have the time to make a decision in other directions. But the longer we want to wait till the last minute to make a decision, the less likely we're going to have the public input time period that the select board needs to do, the expert level of work that needs to be done to actually be able to get the project going and spend the money in time. Now, if Jeff comes back and says the town center committee wants all of the money, wants it all, that's a different decision for me to make. That's a
So Kara, I think it would be important. I'm not asking that. I think it would be important to hear from other members of the committee. Tom and Rachel have their hands up.
Stop talking to
hey,
Jeff.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry for interrupting there, Kara.
Thank you, Tom.
Getting ahead of myself. Next time I'll make a point of being there in person, so you can kick me under the table. I'd like to retract my motion and restate a different motion and see how this goes. So this kind of gets at the issue Kara was talking about. So if I restate this motion, say let's forget about May 31st, June 30th. Look at projects under $20,000 or $25,000. The numbers can change. Let's just say, look at all projects that have been proposed or all the new projects under 25,000. We vote on those in July. So the deadline for submittal would be June 30th. And in this first tranche of projects, the cap of total spending is, say, again, throwing out a number, $200,000. The next tranche of projects need to be submitted by September 30th. And again, we set a cap on the total amount of project aggregate project spending, say $300,000. Again, I'm just throwing numbers out. It's more of a process. There's a deadline for all proposals to be before us. We vote on all the proposals all at once. And the first tranche is smaller projects with an aggregate cap. And then we move on to the bigger projects that we need more detail on.
Rachel,
Wait, Molly has to agree to amend that, or are you?
she already nodded, I checked.
Okay, I'm sorry. So did you just remove the first amendment? I mean, just get rid of the first motion, and this is the motion that is now seconded? Is that where we're at?
We need the motion stated clearly for one thing.
That's why I want to just make sure I'm understanding. Sorry.
It's the motion sounds all bit about tranches. I don't think that's part of the motion. The motion seems to be have projects in by June 30th.
That's not solely it.
No.
Okay, well, if you
Yeah.
like, it needs to be phrased in such a way that we can actually vote on it. Right
Okay.
now-
Want me to try again?
Sure.
Please.
Okay, try this again. The motion would be to set a deadline for projects to be submitted. The motion is to set up two projects tranches. The first tranche would be for all projects to be submitted by June 30th, for all projects to be under $25,000 individually. But in aggregate, we do not spend more than $100,000. It's tranche one. Tranche two will be a deadline date of September 30th for all projects, individual projects, say under $150,000 and this aggregate spending of no more than $250,000. I think I've changed the numbers, but I was just trying to get the concept out.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question on your concept, Tom?
Yep.
So you're saying that we would only have the ability to say your first 100,000, we have to approve projects. We can approve up to 4 projects under 25,000. Well, could you possibly consider a range that we can spend up to $100,000 on projects ranging, or I mean, because what if somebody comes in? What if we don't have the full $100,000 spent, but somebody wants 30?
I'd like to speak to this.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
I'm going to vote against Tom's motion. I'm going to explain why. We have been looking at a version of this spreadsheet. I've added things to it and removed things from it. It's never been a formal put it out there on the website sheet, but as projects have gotten a certain amount of support and we've gotten dollar amounts I've added in this sheet. If you look at this sheet, we've got 2 green items at the top. That's when it's already been allocated. We have already.
Can you repeat that loud?
It's the Broom grant for repair of library exterior, $150,000.
Thank you.
And miscellaneous costs associated with printing, mailing, and other stuff relating to the survey last summer.
Okay.
Approximately $3,000.
Okay.
However, we have discussed on a number of occasions funding, because this was, if you remember the survey responses, there was a ton of stuff from the community on increasing pedestrian safety and so forth. And we have talked about 2 phases of sidewalk, the Bridge Street Complete Streets, a certain amount of paying for municipal oversight of the projects, that's that $35,000 line. And then the Bridge Street East sidewalk, if we got the TAP grant, that would be what our contribution would be. We did get the TAP grant, so that 64,000 would leverage 256,000. There's been obviously a lot of discussion about the cemetery sidewalk. And as I mentioned in an email yesterday or so, if there's archaeological remains or human remains within 8 feet of the where the sidewalk would go, we're not building a sidewalk there. That doesn't mean we wouldn't have sidewalk along the rest of the stretch it's planned for. Josh and I have already discussed, we're gonna be doing the ground sensing radar first things first. So if anybody's going, this is our chance to stop a sidewalk from going over the cemetery. Rest assured, no sidewalk will be built if there's anything under the ground there at all. That's just not, it's not going to start. The repair of headstones, adding fence and gate, I just put in there at the bottom. It's in yellow because we didn't authorize it yet. And we also have an item that was a request from Angeliki at MMC TV and endorsed by Josh. We've never discussed this before, so you notice I don't have it colored in at all. But the MMC TV, which is not overflowing with money, spent $10,000 wiring our conference rooms for audio and video. And Josh thinks it would be a good idea if we contributed $10,000 back, but that's not necessarily something we need to go down the rabbit hole on tonight. The reason I mention these items is because the idea of these tranches where we say only up to this point, if you sum up the amounts in this spreadsheet, including digitizing town records, and that is a real crapshoot number for right now, so take it as read that that may not be what we spend. It would total up right now to $578,862.25, leaving $621,137.75. Now we have a little tug of war there because the recreation recommendations, if we have public hearings on them and the town says, well, we like this, but we don't like that, we like this, but it's up there, could be over $300,000. The town center project could ask for over $300,000. And I think it's a really bad idea to keep tossing around the number 1.2 million because we don't have 1.2 million. We have projects that the select board is going to move forward, whether we endorse them or not. Those sidewalks are going to be built. The only question is how much of the money comes from ARPA and how much is coming from other sources. We might in the end vote to authorize that money for the sidewalks, and then the town might say, actually, we found a better place to put it, to fund it from, and we might give some of that money back. You know, we'll obviously try to do that. But realistically, I think that sooner rather than later, so that we have an accurate idea of really how much money is still out there, we go ahead and move through the things that are in yellow.
I like this idea, Jay. Can I just ask a question? And this is more directed toward Tom and other members. Because of always waiting for some deadline date for the future, I'm at the point where we have been letting people know that we're going to be making some decisions. We're not out there seeking more, come ask for money, come ask for money. Are you guys, do you have another project that you have heard about or that's in mind? I'm confused why we can't start making decisions about the ones that are on the table that we've already been presented with and being able to then say what's remaining. Maybe we divide up between, I mean, the park asked for 250,000 for majority of it was for a new playground equipment. So even if we say what Jay is saying, allocate 300,000 for the town center and 300,000 for the park improvements, whether it's this park or Brown's Court. And then the select board makes the decision if they buy the new playground piece of equipment.
Jay, could we hear from some other committee members? I see Rachel's had her hand up.
Continue, please, Karen.
So that was my question is if we've got these lists, this list isn't going away. Is there something else out there that we don't know about? And why do we have to wait till June for it?
Right.
That's the elementary school.
Rachel, you've got your hand up again. Please go ahead.
Well, there are two things. One, there's another question and I can't answer it in the chat. Is there a Concord Road Committee? Someone asked. And I said, I think it's under the Transportation Committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the second thing I just wanted to say is I kind of liked that. And in response to what Kara was asking, I like the May 31st deadline as a no more new submissions. And then we start making decisions in June or, you know, whatever the date is. And then after that, we're just going to start boom, 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 making decisions, whether we have final numbers or not. Here's what the number of the estimate is. Here's what we're going to give you and see you later. Good luck, you know.
Right. Molly?
Yeah, I just Kara, to answer your questions, I do not know of any like project I'm waiting for anything like that. What I don't see on the list, and I know, and we've all heard this, that something's coming, is from the town center.
Yep.
And I do believe,
The dollar.
okay, I'm just saying, but that's not on the list and we haven't had, so there's that. And then there's, all this stuff about park improvements and I think, so we haven't actually
Yep.
really talked about that. So that's really what's on my mind. And I feel, while I appreciate, Tom, your creativity about the idea of tranches, I think it is going to overcomplicate the process. What I'm more comfortable with is definitely having a deadline for projects to be, in a bucket that we're looking at. And I don't think also that we need to have dollars and cents. That's not, I've never thought that was our role. I'm a little, I would honestly just feel more comfortable with the June 30th deadline for that, because it's already April. And I feel like, I'm just not sure that we're going to have more information, enough more information from the town center or whatever the park ideas are. So I'm just saying, I would feel more comfortable with just giving us a little more time in June to say all the projects are here by the end of June.
If we're really looking like at two last numbers, can't we just say April and then we give an estimated amount for those projects? Because we know
Say
the
May,
town center could take.
I would ask that we hear from other committee members as well.
Jeff, cut it
Kara.
out. As the
Tom,
chair, I'm saying, you like to go on at length. You don't like Kara to go on at length. You are both members of this committee. Please stop asking me to gavel her down. Seriously.
okay, Tom has his hand up.
And Tom is welcome to go when Kara's done. Kara, you done for now?
Yes.
Kara's done for now. Tom, go ahead.
Well, to answer Kara's specific question, I do not know of any other projects that are coming down the pike here, going to be introduced anytime soon. But what I was responding to were these projects that seem to be cropping up, like the cemetery one and the one from last week about the library. That was all I was trying to address. If this committee feels like they're ready to vote on everything on Jay's list except for, what color is that? Purple? The purple? Fine, let's do it. Let's vote. Let's vote, next week. If you want to do that. And then we set up a timeline for the recreation town center and digitizing town land records.
Go ahead, Molly.
That doesn't work for me because I want to have a sense. There is a finite amount of money. So I just want to I would rather wait till May 30th or whatever, June 30th, May 31st, whatever, to have at least an idea of the dollar amounts on the ones that are in purple. And then I would feel like we had a real, pot of projects that we can discuss and make.
Well,
I don't want to make what we did last month with the library. I struggled with a little bit, but at the end I voted for it because a case was made that it was very timely. There was an application due, and to me it fit every criteria. And I thought of public comment, and the library got mentioned a lot, so that's why I felt fine doing that. But my preference is that we have some totality of these projects with some estimate of money before we then make decisions.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with not voting any of this money till the end of May, including the yellow, provided there's an understanding to some extent that the items in yellow do not need to be started over on and discussed from the beginning again, as we've had kind of a habit of doing. If we want to do a series of votes all at once at the same time, that's great. But I think it's important to remember that unless we just basically go back on months of discussions, off and on piecemeal discussions, that if we keep saying 1.2 million and acting like potentially all 1.2 million can go to the town center or to any other project or to buying a whole lot of waffles, I mean, whatever. I like waffles. I think it does a solid disservice, and it does the town a disservice. I've seen emails and things in French Porch Forum where people are still tossing around a $1.2 million amount as though that's all still out there, as though we've done none of this discussion. And what I'd like to do is be able to accurately say, this much is still wide open. this much, we have a pretty solid idea on.
Mhm.
Because so long as we're treating it all as wide open, it's confusing as hell for everybody.
That's fair.
Thank you, and that's how I feel too. My only concern, Molly, is the
Mhm.
town center. We already have been told a number. We've been told a
We have.
number. It's, well,
So maybe I just
it's
don't
public.
remember.
It's been 6.8 million was what was discussed
Oh,
from the
but no,
select
we haven't
level.
had that conversation here.
They haven't done a presentation. Is we don't personally. I don't need to see the presentation of what they have to go to bond. The town center will have to go to a bond vote. Period. It's going to.
Okay.
They're not going to do only a small amount of work to the town center. They're not spending even 1.2 million. It's going to be above that. That's why they didn't ask for the 1.2.
Mhm.
So they're going to have to go to a bond vote. So for me, the range that they could come in, they could come in from wanting 100,000 to wanting 1.2 million, but I think it's going to be a larger chunk of money if they have a $6.8 million project. So if Jeff's talking about the difference between going to the high efficiency versus just coming in and doing this, that range has still got to be extremely large amounts of money. I don't think he's going to have any details on as far as how much exactly things are going to cost. So my feeling is if we're going to allot some toward the project, we don't get to decide where it goes in the project. We don't need to see the bells and whistles. We're not going to say we want you to use these kinds of windows or have recommendations. That's a lot of, I'm not an expert. I don't need to spend my time on that. So I want to move forward with the vote. I want to move forward with a vote on things that we know about, because I know the town center has to go to bond. It does.
But there's still, but they could, the town center committee, just like other committees, could come to us as an ARPA committee and say, this is an estimate of what we think we're gonna ask for from ARPA. I just feel like we should have that.
I think we
don't
should
want
have that.
That's if we don't set it up.
It would be good if we could have that number. I'm willing to go at the end of June date. If we could have a number from the town center committee by the end of June, that would be marvelous. If we don't, then we're in a position of saying, this is the zone you're in because this is what we have left.
I don't want to wait till June. I think you're pushing into the months that if the cemetery can do the fence, you're going to push them out to later in the fall to possibly get it because of ordering materials and labor lined up and stuff like that. I would just as soon pick the end of May. If we're going to kick it out another month
Okay,
and wait.
well, right now, I know we're over but we do have a motion on the floor to have. Tom, what was your date in the motion? May 31st or June 30th?
The first one,
The motion that's still effectively the current motion.
May 31st.
May 31st, he said May 31st.
And what to do these tranches and things. I'm opposed to it because this doesn't fit into those tranches, but your mileage may vary. Can we go ahead and vote?
Tom, do you want to stay with the tranches or do you just want to just make a motion to say everything to us by May 31st? Do you want tranches?
I'm thinking.
I prefer June 30th myself.
Well, we have to see if we're having tranches first.
Yeah, if we don't
His
have,
motion was May 31st. We
So-
can't.
So I'm looking at the spreadsheet here. So we're ready. We've already voted on the green.
Mhm. We're warmly sympathetic to the yellow, although one of them clearly did just come up tonight. The other three have been being tossed around for quite a while.
Okay,
The
so,
purple we don't have numbers on.
okay, so here's, so I say we hold a vote by May 31st on those items that are yellow.
Okay, Molly, is that acceptable?
I can't
Yep.
see what's in the yellow item, so I apologize.
Sorry, the four things that are in yellow are the Bridge Street Completes Project, the municipal oversight, the Bridge Street East Sidewalk match, and the repair of headstones. I didn't flag the MMC to be $10,000 in yellow because you've literally heard nothing about it other than that I mentioned it. So I'd like to discuss that at a future meeting. But then the purple items are the unknown number to digitize land records and whatever the town center and whatever we wind up after massive discussion we wind up doing on recreation.
You did have a recreation number though, and so at this point, the presentation that they did to us, you do
It
have a
was-
number for them,
It's a large number, but I do have it.
right?
And it's more than we have left.
For putting their new playground in,
Oh, no, I was talking about
no,
the,
just that
just
was,
the playground.
you should put in what the rec committee presented to you.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll update this to reflect exactly what they recommend.
Thank
and
you.
is that yellow then?
That should be yellow.
Okay. I'll get that number and I'll plug this in and we'll send this out tomorrow, but so essentially if I could rephrase Tom's motion. Vote for everything that is currently on our list that does not fall under the heading of town center or recreation beyond the strict literal items that the recreation committee asked for.
Correct. And that deals with.
And
And
digitizing town
digitizing.
records. Is
And
that yellow?
digitizing town records, correct.
Yes, okay.
So the yellow, I think we're feeling comfortable enough to consider voting on next time.
Mhm.
I will restore the exact dollar amount of what the recreation committee asked for and include that when I send that out. But that might be something we would want to go on into June and look at, or maybe we might change our mind at the next meeting in May and go, we do have some data, let's move forward on those. I'm just asking us to move forward essentially on the yellow. And so if we want to phrase that, and we can't in the motion say, let's do the yellow stuff. But what we can do is say,
The existing projects, we have dollar amounts on that have been presented to us.
right, and we've not been presented a dollar amount on that. So I'm just,
Correct. So the existing projects that we have been presented
Mhm.
with dollar amounts.
And that includes the MMCTV?
No,
we have not been presented that formally.
Right,
It's something I feel good about, but then again,
We know nothing about it.
I'm president of MSCTV, so.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so I would appreciate it. So I like this motion. I would appreciate in the minutes to reflect exactly what those things are.
Mhm.
So that, people can
Right.
understand what we're talking about.
You're right, because we can't just say in somebody reading the minutes 10 years from now, what was the
the rec was 249.
249, thank you. Update it now. Okay,
so is that yellow now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and just so I
Have a motion.
understand, what we will be doing at our next meeting is talking about not just this as a group. We'll be talking about each one of these and whether we say yay or nay on each one of these. Is that
We'll vote
correct?
Individually.
yes,
Correct.
absolutely.
Correct.
Okay.
So has the motion been rephrased so I can second it again? What do we gotta do?
The motion essentially is at the next meeting, vote for everything that is not, that has a vote for
Mhm.
or against everything that has a dollar amount.
Okay,
That
second.
has been presented to us.
So it's been presented and a
to us
dollar.
With a dollar.
Yes,
Both those
thank
things.
Okay,
presented and a dollar.
everybody good? Okay,
Kara, I vote aye.
okay.
Molly, I.
Mary, I.
Jeff, aye.
Rachel had to drop off. Josh is not here. Eric is not here. Jay votes aye.
So at our next meeting,
Thank you.
our next meeting is to be held. Can we talk about that date so we know when we're voting
Oh,
on
that's a
this?
good idea.
Right,
So that we can make sure people can be there to
Yeah.
vote, since this is a big vote.
Yeah,
And while you look at dates, I just want to talk to the people who are in the room that talk about the rec stuff, just to let you both know. I was
You ever had
working
ice cream
on
on
that big
waffles?
question.
Yes, I have.
I hear you. I think it can be tabled, all those ideas. They came to us and just asked for, why are you guys looking at dates?
Okay.
Let me-
So Lane's gonna,
it's supposed to be the next day. When it's.
it would be more, it'd be 426. If we don't think we're gonna have numbers from the town center committee, there's not much point coming together just to be told we don't have numbers. Jeff, do you think we should just not have one in 2 weeks and meet the second Wednesday in May? Does that make sense, or what do you think?
It makes more sense to me. The 26th is also school vacation week. And so, and I personally am going to be out of town myself. The town center committee is meeting tomorrow and this item is on our agenda.
So
Okay.
we're looking at May 10th as the next meeting?
May 10th then? Okay. If there are no objections, I don't know that we need a motion if it's just consensus, but does May 10th sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and
May
Yeah.
10th for the vote on those items.
Yeah,
The next meeting.
yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So we're about to wrap up. I just wanted to give a chance there to guests. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? You've been very polite to sit through all this. Okay. Just want to make sure, at the end, you've seen that we're not in a rush to spend money on Volunteers Green without really making sure it's what the town wants.
Right.
And I am sympathetic, by the way, just the idea of people selling drugs and going up and down. I want to just add, right now upstairs, they're interviewing police chief candidates. And I have this naive hope, because I haven't heard specifics, but I've heard some generalities. We have a really good group of candidates, that we had like 6 people that we felt worthy of calling in for an interview. Which is better than we've done in the past. And I'm hoping that whoever we get will be able to participate in strategic planning with us, maybe bring some officers with them. So that we can, not have to keep saying we have no one to send.
Right, yeah.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, please state your name and your vote.
Gary, aye.
Sarah, aye.
Molly, I.
Jeff, I.
I.
And J.I. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We will
Thank
see
you.
you. in May.
Thank you, everybody. Good meeting.
Yes, I didn't get your. Did you send it to me?
I sent it to the.